talk about the comparison trap. I think sometimes as women, as mothers, there's this tendency for us to compare ourselves to other women, right? Like I know you mentioned like the Pinterest perfect mom, right? So what do you think about that? Do you think that's like something that women struggle with, and how can we get over that?
Have you ever heard that the beauty industry is a billion-dollar industry?
Yeah.
Um, I would bet that somewhere in the 90% range of your viewers are also familiar with Pinterest,
Hmm.
right? Instagram is phenomenally popular. And I think that there is one core reason for that. We all want to look good to each other.
Yeah.
Right? Um, don't get me wrong, I've gotten amazing ideas off of Pinterest. And I've learned a lot of stuff from, seeing things on Instagram, like, oh, I didn't know about that. And as you can see, I have makeup on, right? We compare each other without a doubt, right? And I think in some ways, well, I was going to say in some ways that's not a bad thing. But then I feel like God just auto-corrected me in my head. Comparison is the thief of joy. I heard that some musician, I don't know, I listened to on Caleb, but I remember they were playing that soundbite for a while, like comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it takes away our joy. It takes away our ability to be content with what we have. Now, there's nothing wrong with inspiration, right? And I think things like Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, Google searches, walking down the street, all of these things are can be used for inspiration. Like there's different trends. One of my absolute favorite shows is Fixer Upper, Chip and Joanna, and I'm like, I could just watch that all day, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of inspiration. Inspiration is cool, but comparison is extremely dangerous. Comparison will lead us to believe that our husbands are inadequate and that maybe we made a mistake in who we married. Comparison will lead us to believe that our children aren't cute or good enough or smart enough. Comparison will lead us to believe that the home that God has given us or apartment or wherever we live is not good enough. It's not nice enough or adequate enough to invite people over.
Yep.
Comparison will have us believing that we are not pretty enough or smart enough or capable enough or attractive enough, all of these things, right? Comparison is very dangerous, but the greatest danger is that we fall into it every single day, subconsciously. And I would say that most of us, most women, Christian or not, whatever, are in denial of it. It affects many different areas of our lives. And then it like comparison is the thing that gets us to think that we can and should and want to do it all. When in reality, it's like if you had a marathon day, like, let me put it this way. If you ran the New York City Marathon, which is what, 23.2 miles or 26.2 miles, something like that, right? Would you come home and clean your house top to bottom?
Yeah, no.
Right. But we think that we should go out, do all this stuff, and then still come home and clean our house top to bottom because that's just the way that it should look. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, and us comparing ourselves to the people that we see on TV, the posts that are here, the women that you see walking down the street, it's like, you think that that's how you're supposed to look, but the reality is that God is saying, no, let me show you how you should look. Let me show you what your life should look like. Let me show you what your home can look like. And not because God is a dictator, but because he understands each of us intricately and specifically because he made us, and he knows what will make my heart happy.
Yeah.
He knows the things that will mature me, that will refine me. and that will really bring me true joy. Whereas if I'm trying to put on someone else's shoes, so to speak, um, like they might fit for a little bit, but eventually they're uncomfortable
Yeah.
versus a pair of shoes that are custom made, right? And God will show us like, this is what you can really look like. Stop comparing yourself to every other woman. Yeah, she might have a great outfit. Okay, maybe you can go find that dress, but stop trying to mimic her life. You don't know what her life looks like at home.
Right. Right.
You don't know how her husband talks to her. You don't know if he talks to her. You don't
Right.
know if she looks that good because she's trying to make herself feel better because home feels really crappy.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know. But we compare ourselves to images, and it is dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. So well said. Well said. And I think you're right when you just say like you don't really know someone else's life, right? And I think like even as a mom, sometimes there is that temptation to be like, oh, like this person runs their house this way, or this person's kids actually sit still, like all these different things. And it's like you don't really know, and everyone's situation is different, like people's husbands work different hours. People's kids are different age ranges. That makes a difference, you
You
know. Yeah, and
also,
not to mention, okay,
I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say, even if someone else had a life that on image alone looked exactly like mine, I'm like, guess what? They don't have my personality.
No,
They don't have my health issues. They don't have my family history.
right,
All these different things that go into what makes your life your life.
right.
So it really is a trap. Yeah.
And with the thing with kids, right? This just came to mind. I've seen, you know, have friends whose kids behave. Now, don't get me wrong. Obedience is a big thing, right? Like you want your kids to honor and obey what you're saying.
Mhm.
But in terms of levels of rambunctiousness and energy and talkativeness and socializing, they're all different. And the reality is that they were intricately and wonderfully made. The kid who is like always going, like don't try to like what's the word?
Like stifle him.
No, not subdue, sedate your kids, right? Like the
Right.
kid who's super energetic, like God will use that energy to make him an evangelist.
Mhm.
The kid that's super chill, like God will use that in like helping her minister unto others, right?
Mhm.
And being a great listener, right? But
Mhm.
so often we compare and we're like, I wish my kids did that, but it's like, but you don't
Yeah.
know, right? And you have all these different personalities. And another thing that God has been teaching me is just to be intentional about allowing him to guide prayer for our kids, right? So
Mhm.
like my daughters, there's so much there. I'm sorry. um
That's fine.
my job is not to try to make my kids who I want them to be.
Yeah.
My job is to serve as a conduit in leading them in the direction for which God has made them.
Amen. Yeah.
And I can kill their spirit by trying to make them act like someone else's kids because they're not someone else's kids, right?
Yeah.
And so my job is to say, Lord, how do I do this for the purpose in which you have for them, not for
Mhm.
what I want them to be. I'm sorry, I'm getting all emotional and like,
No, it's good. Yeah.
um, but God has been teaching me that. And it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard at times, um, not all the time, but sometimes, but that's like what it is, because you have all these kids who are like grown people who are like, well, my parents wanted me to do this, my mom is trying to push this on me and I didn't want to do that. And it's like, how different would so many of us be if our parents had just prayed and said, God, help me to see what you see
Yes.
in my children, right? Help me to see what
Mhm.
you see so that I'm not frustrated in what I'm trying to make them be. you know?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We could do a whole episode on that.
we should. We probably should.
Yeah, we should.